Hi everyone. I had the privilege of preaching on Sunday at the King's Arms, but sadly it didn't record. So I thought I would just do a little recap of it here. For those of you who are coming along to the church, you'll know that we're in a series looking at the life of Elijah, so looking at 1 Kings. And last week Simon did a brilliant preach looking at when Elijah flees to Mount Carmel and how God meets with him there. And at the end of that section, we see that God gives Elijah 3 instructions. He's to go back to anoint 2 kings. And thirdly, he's to go and find Elisha and anoint him as prophet to succeed Elijah. And so we're actually picking up the story this week in 1 Kings 19 when Elijah does just that. So let me just read it to you. So Elijah went and found Elisha, son of Shaphat, ploughing a field. There were 12 teams of oxen in the field, and Elisha was ploughing with the 12th team. Elijah went over to him and threw his cloak across his shoulders and then walked away. Elisha left the oxen standing there, ran after Elijah and said to him, "First let me go and kiss my father and mother goodbye, and then I will go with you." Elijah replied, "Go on back, but think about what I've done to you." So Elisha returned to his oxen and slaughtered them. He used the wood from the plough to build a fire to roast their flesh. He passed around the meat to the townspeople, and they all ate. And then he went with Elijah as his assistant. I don't know about you, but sometimes I read passages in the Bible and think, what on earth is going on? It's so bizarre. I mean, this situation equally bizarre for both Elijah and Elisha. You know, Elisha's there minding his own business, ploughing his field, and then Elijah comes up to him, puts his cloak on his shoulders and then walks off. Bizarre. And equally bizarre for Elijah to walk up to Elisha, put his cloak on his shoulders and walk away. What on earth is going on here? Well, I think it's clear from the passage, both Elijah and Elisha are very clear about what's happening. So what is going on? Well, basically, Elijah is doing exactly what God's asked him to do. He's gone to find Elisha and he's basically anointing him to succeed him as prophet. The very act of Elijah putting the cloak around Elisha's shoulders, he's basically saying, my calling is going to be your calling. My breakthrough is going to be your breakthrough. What I carry, you are going to carry. But more than that, he's also inviting Elisha to follow him, to do life with him, to learn from him, so that when Elijah dies, what he's seen in God and the breakthroughs he's enjoyed and experienced doesn't die with him, but he's able to pass the baton on to Elisha so that Elisha can then take things further and see greater breakthrough. Essentially, Elijah's making sure that his history with God, his experience with God, his breakthrough, the influence he's called to have, doesn't just peter out when he's gone, but grows and develops and gets taken further through Elisha. He's making sure he leaves a legacy. And the truth is that all of us are called to leave a legacy in God for the generations that come after us. I love to think about legacy quite a lot. It's one of my favourite things to think about and dream about. And I know that part of the legacy I'm called to leave is around stuff to do with hearing God for words of knowledge, for healing, and then praying and seeing the sick healed. I think over the years I've probably trained hundreds of people to hear God through words of knowledge. And what's fun for me is I reckon 9 times out of 10 when someone has a go at getting a word of knowledge after I've taught them, 9 times out of 10 they get it accurate, which is amazing. I remember one time when I was in America and I was teaching a friend of mine how to get a word of knowledge. And it was literally 5 minutes in her car. I gave her the different ways she could get a word of knowledge. And that was a Saturday. And then on the Sunday, she came up to me in the church and said that she'd had a dream that night before. And that in the dream, a guy had had a car accident and badly injured his back. So I said, I think it could be a word of knowledge. Let's bring it. Let's see. So she brought the word of knowledge at the end of the meeting. And there was a guy in the meeting who was in his 60s who responded and said when he was a teenager, he'd been messing around in a car and actually fallen off the back of the car and really badly injured his back. And he had pain ever since. And so we got to pray for him and he was instantly healed, which was just so exciting. It was her first ever word of knowledge and she saw an incredible miracle. But you know, the reality for me is that wasn't my story. When I first started out stepping out in words of knowledge, I honestly, first of all, didn't know what they were. It took me a while to learn the different ways that God might speak to me. I had to wrestle through, okay, is this God speaking to me or am I making this up? You know, there would be times when I'd stand at the front of church and bring a really general word of knowledge and no one would respond and I had to fight through discouragement and doubt and does God really want to use me and speak to me? And then I'd begin to bring more accurate words of knowledge and be asking God more questions about the words. And I'd bring those and no one would respond, and you have to again push through the embarrassment of looking foolish. And but bit by bit over the years, God's been so faithful, and as I've kept going for it and kept going for it, I've stepped into breakthrough, and I've not only heard God accurately with words of knowledge, but also seen people healed after I've prayed. And I know that basically what I've paid a price for in going after words of knowledge and taking ground in that area, I get to give away for free to the people around me and to the generations that are coming behind me, so they don't have to fight the same battles, but they can build on what I've won in the battles that I've fought. And the truth is, as believers, we have the privilege of building a legacy and leaving a legacy for the people around us, but also for the people who come after us, the generations who come after us. You know, we have an opportunity to follow God really closely, to learn about who he is, who he says we are, to take risks for him, to take ground for him, to stand firm in the battles, to learn how to do that, to fight fights in him, to see breakthrough, to see miracles, and then to freely give that away to the people around us and the generations that come after us. You know, the dream has got to be that our ceiling becomes other people's floor. It would be tragic if the next generation had to start from scratch and learn all the same lessons again. What's meant to happen is we push in and fight for breakthrough with God in our lifetime, and then hand it for free to the generations that come after us, so that they then see more. They see increased breakthrough in their workplaces, in their families, in their communities, wherever it is. They see more miracles. They hear God's voice with more accuracy. They see government influenced in a bigger way. Whatever it is, wherever our area of influence is, the dream is that it should just be going from strength to strength, more and more of God's kingdom, as we all look to build legacy and leave it for free for the generations to come after us. You know, we see this principle of our ceiling being someone else's floor when you look at Elijah and Elisha and the miracles they saw, because there are similarities, but also with Elisha, increase. So what's interesting to me is that the final miracle that Elijah saw was he used his cloak to tap on the edge of the Jordan River, and the waters parted, and both Elijah and Elisha walked through the Jordan. Now, not long after that, Elijah's taken up into heaven and his cloak is left behind, and Elisha takes on his mantle. What's the first miracle Elisha does? Well, he takes the cloak and he taps on the Jordan River and the waters part. And already there you're seeing legacy. Elisha is starting off where Elijah finished. You know, Elijah saw oil multiplied for the widow, but in his situation, the widow was just to keep using the same jar that she was using, keep pouring the oil as she needed to make bread, etc. But it was all contained to one jar. When Elisha saw oil multiplied for a widow, his instruction to her was, gather as many empty vessels as you can and just keep pouring until they're all full. In other words, there was just like an abundance, an overflow of oil. Again, there's increase. But I think my favourite example is when Elijah fears for his life through Jezebel. He flees. He flees to Mount Carmel. He feels like he's on his own. He's the only one, and he runs away. And God has to come and meet him there. But what's interesting is when Elisha comes under a situation where his life is in danger and he is surrounded by enemy armies, interestingly, his servant says to him, Elisha, what we're going to do, we're doomed for. And Elisha has a completely different response to Elijah in the similar situation. Elisha can see that God is with him, and actually he prays for his servant. He says, Father, would you open his eyes? At which point the servant, then his eyes are opened and he can see the armies of heaven standing with them to go against the enemy armies. And I just love that. I reckon Elijah and Elisha would have talked a lot about the time when Elijah ran away. And Elijah would have said to Elisha, listen, if you ever feel like you're on your own, you need to know God's with you. He'll never leave you. He's always going to be close to you. And Elisha steps into that legacy because in this scenario, he's remembered. God is never going to leave me. I don't have to worry. He's close. He's going to fight for me. He's going to protect me. And because of that, he has a different response. That is an example of Elisha standing on the shoulders of Elijah and being able to take things further, which is amazing. And obviously we see this principle of legacy with Jesus. You know, Jesus modeled how to live the normal Christian life. He went around proclaiming and demonstrating the kingdom, but he didn't want it just to stop with him. He very quickly invited the 12 to do life with him so that they could learn to do the same stuff, Then he trained and equipped and released the 72. And then when he went up back into heaven, he made it very clear that the life that he had lived was for every believer. What's amazing is Jesus won the ultimate legacy for us. You know, he paid the ultimate price. He laid down his life so that we could step into freedom, so that we could experience joy and hope and peace and forgiveness and healing and power and the ability to be in relationship with the Father and to hear his voice and demonstrate his love wherever we go. We have got the most amazing legacy from Jesus. He paid the price for us and we get it for free. And we have the privilege now of taking what Jesus has given us and paying our own price to take things further, to see more breakthrough, greater influence, greater transformation in our nation and the nations of the world. But also having the mindset of, I want to build the best legacy I can, but I also want to bring other people along with me so that I can give it to them for free, so that they can then go and do the same stuff and see more breakthrough, and my ceiling will be their floor and they'll be able to run harder and faster than I could ever possibly dream to do. And that's the heart behind it. And I think the good question to ask yourself is, what kind of legacy do you want to leave? And when you think about that, just spend time with Jesus. What kind of legacy do I want to leave? Spend time dreaming about it, and I think just be dreaming big, be thinking through. If I were to really go after seeing as much as I can in my lifetime, and I was intentional about bringing other people along beside me so that when I'm not here anymore, I pass the baton to them, be dreaming about what might they see, what might they be able to step into, what transformation might they be able to enjoy if we pass stuff on well. And so hopefully you're convinced that you're called to leave a legacy, and it'd be good to get some time to dream about that. But if that's true, how do we do it? And let me just share a few thoughts. I think we can learn lessons from both Elijah and Elisha, because I think the truth is we can all be in either of their positions in this story. So we can all be in Elijah's position, which is in the position of wanting to train people and invest in people and see people grow and develop in God. But I think we can also all be in Elisha's position, which is the position of other people investing in us and believing in us and wanting to help us be everything God's called us to be. So I think there's two main things we can learn. From Elijah, I think we can learn the importance of invitation. And from Elisha, I think we can learn the importance of being all in. So let's quickly look at invitation. I think if we want to leave a legacy, we have got to be intentional about inviting people to do life with us. You'll notice in this passage, Elijah, based on God's instruction to him, picked out Elisha. And he went up to him and he invited him, come follow me, come do life with me. And we see the same with Jesus actually. You know, when Jesus called his disciples, he invited them. He said, come and follow me. There was an invitation. And I actually think it's really crucial. I think if we want to leave a legacy, it's unlikely to happen by accident. We've got to be intentional. And it's interesting, I get the privilege of running some online training huddles for women in leadership in the workplace and in the church. And I've been running them now for 4 years. And I was just doing some calculations and I realised that I've had 34 women go through those huddles over the last 4 years. Or is it 33? Hang on, it's 33. 33 women go through those huddles, including this year, which is amazing. I spend 9 months with them. But what I also realised is that only 2 of those women have applied to join those huddles independent of me actually inviting them. So 31 of the women I've invested in have signed up because I have made the personal invite and said to them, I want you to be part of this, will you join? And I think that's really important for us to be aware of. Invitation is key. It's unlikely in my experience that people are going to come up to us and say, I see something in you, I really want to learn, can you teach me X, Y, Z? They may do, but in my experience, 9 times out of 10, people step into who they're called to be because someone else spots something in them and says, look, I see this in you, I believe in you, come and follow me, come spend some time with me so that I can help draw that out of you and invest in you. And I think inviting people to learn from us doesn't have to be complicated. You know, it can be as easy as inviting someone to go for a coffee or for a walk or spend time with your family, and then making the most of that time to share your life with them, ask them about their life, ask really good questions, find out who people are and what makes them tick, and then sharing from your own experience in terms of your walk with God and His calling on your life. I think that's a really brilliant way of investing in people. We can invest in people in terms of their relationship with Jesus. We can invite someone to read the Bible with you and then ask each other questions. Invite someone to pray with you and let them learn that way. And I think actually if we can help people grow in their relationship with Jesus, their love for him, seeing him as Lord of their life, worship, prophecy, reading the Bible, prayer, all those foundations, and that's huge. And actually if someone's strong in their walk with Jesus, then anything's possible. So we can invest in people that way. We can also invite people to learn skills and gifts from us that we've perhaps practiced over years and we've got really good at, so that again they don't have to learn the same stuff as us. They can start where we're leaving off, and so I think that's also really powerful and a brilliant way to do that. We've got some discipleship language at the King's Arms, and one of the discipleship tools is called the multiply tool, and I haven't got time to go through it, but the first part of it is watch, and that means inviting people to intentionally watch you do the thing they want to grow in. So you might ask someone to watch you bring a presentation or diagnose a condition or lead a meeting or host worship or whatever it is the person's wanting to grow in, and you say to them, watch me, but encourage them to watch you actively. So they write down questions based on stuff they observe. Why did you do this? Why did you say that then? I noticed you did this. Why was that? And so they write all these questions down, and at the end of the activity you can then debrief. You get together and they can ask you the questions and you can answer. And it's brilliant actually for both people, because firstly for the person being trained, they get to not just learn how to copy behaviour, but understand your thinking behind what you've done or what you haven't done. We want to empower people to be themselves when they lead and when they do stuff. And so we don't want them just to copy us. We want them to know the thinking behind why we're doing certain things, so that they can then understand it for themselves when they step out and have a go. But also it's good for the person doing the training, because I remember a time when I invited some girls to come on a ministry trip with me, and I told them to do this, watch me. And at one point at the end, we were debriefing, and the girl said, I noticed during worship you went and stood at the back of the hall. Why did you do that? It was a brilliant question. It was something I did naturally. I took it a bit for granted, and it made me have to think, why did I do that? And sometimes it will mean when people watch you, they'll identify things that actually you're doing that you don't need to do, or they'll identify things that you're doing that you could change and develop to make your practice better, or whatever it is. So it's a brilliant way for both people to learn and grow. And so I guess the question is, who are you inviting to learn from you? Who are you inviting to watch you, to ask you questions? And just to say on this, I know I'm being a bit silly with this example, but when it comes to inviting people to watch you, I wouldn't suggest you're like, I pick you, I've got so much to teach you, you should follow me, you will learn so many wonderful things. Now obviously we don't approach people like that, because people have to be free to choose. We can't force people to learn from us. And so, we have to release them, and there should be no hint of control, and people get the right to choose. And also we need to realise when we do have people we're investing in, the learning goes both ways. We have to be open to learning from them as well as them learning from us. I think that's just healthy. So invitation is key. What can we learn from Elisha? The whole thing of being all in, the importance of being all in. In the passage, we see that before Elisha follows Elijah, he heads back home and he burns his plough, makes a fire, slaughters the oxen, cooks it on the fire, and then hands it out to everyone around him. What's going on here? It's kind of random. Well, I think what's going on is Elisha is making a very clear statement to God and Elijah that says, I'm all in. It's like he's saying to God, I believe in the call on you've got for my life, and I want to show you I'm all in. And he's saying to Elijah, I'm all in, I'm going to follow you, I'm going to pursue you. It's like he's burning his livelihood. He's burning the thing that he could potentially fall back on. If all this goes pear-shaped, I can go back to ploughing. But what he's doing is he's getting rid of that, so there's nothing for him to go back on. And then what it's saying is, I'm all in, I'm going to go for it, I'm all yours, I'm ready and eager to learn. And we see this with Jesus. When he calls his disciples, they leave their nets, they leave their livelihoods. And again, it's a sign of Jesus, I'm all in, I'm wanting to learn, I'm eager. And I think, I'm not saying, we're going to have to do that. I'm not saying people should leave their jobs or move places to get around the people they want to learn from. Although some people will do that. Some people might move locations, might move jobs, because there's someone they identify particularly who carries something that they want and they want to grow in, and so they just want to get in close proximity to that person to learn from them as much as they can. Some of us might do that, but I think the general principle for us in this is that we have hearts that are humble and open and eager to learn from anyone and everyone. And I think if you have that kind of heart, you will be able to grow and you will step increasingly into all that God's called you to do. And I think the other thing to bear in mind is that the truth is that it's possible to learn from people without being invited. So you don't have to wait for someone to invite you to learn from them. For example, a while ago I was praying for someone and they were getting some freedom, and at one point in the prayer they put their hands up over their ears, and I just clocked what was going on. And then a bit later, a friend of mine, Amanda Humphrey, came and continued praying for them, and I went off, but I'd clocked what happened. And when I saw Amanda the next day, I actually asked her about it, and I said, I saw that they put their hands by their ears. What do you think that meant? And she was able to tell me from her experience what that sometimes means. And I said to her, what did you do next with them? And she told me, and it was really helpful. Now, Amanda didn't invite me to learn from her, but I came with a humble heart, eager to learn, and I just asked her a question. And there's something about observing people and asking questions that's really powerful. I reckon Elisha, while he was hanging out with Elijah, it was 9 years, by the way, before the baton was passed over. I reckon he watched loads and asked loads of questions. And I think if we have that heart, if we have that mentality, we can actually learn a lot from observing people and asking them questions when questions pop into our heads. But it's also important to realise we can learn from people we've never met, who we don't even live in the same area as. So a lot of my learning and growing happens through reading and through listening to teaching. So I identify someone who I think they're carrying some of what I want, and then I read stuff from them and I listen to them so that I can receive what they carry, and I've never met them before. So Heidi Baker would be an example for me. So inspired by her, love her childlikeness, love the miracles she sees, love her obedience to Jesus. And so I read stuff from her, and when I get the chance to see her teaching online, I watch what she does and I'm observing. And yeah, I can't ask her questions directly, but I can still learn through her and receive stuff. And what that means is I'm basically trying to build the best legacy I can before I go to be with Jesus. I want to take all the ground I can. I want to have all the influence I'm called to have, and I want to grow in faith and expectation and all of that. So I'm putting in myself in positions to learn from people and to grow and to step on other people's shoulders and to have other people's ceilings be my floor. And then I'm looking to bring as many people along as I can, give away to them for free what I've paid a price for, so that I don't just build this great legacy that then stops when I've gone, but there are multiple people all around who can take things further because they've received from me as well. So I guess the question is, who are you learning from? Who is carrying what you want to grow in, that you could get around and ask questions of? What books could you read? What talks could you listen to? So that you can build the best legacy possible, which means that you can give away a great gift to the people around you and the generations that come after you. And let me just finish with this. I think when we read scripture, it gives us a blueprint for how God wants us to live our lives. But I think more important than that, it also points to the truth about who God is. And the reality is, when you read this passage in 1 Kings 19, underpinning everything else I've just talked about is that it points to the fact that God is passionate about relationship with us. Elijah calling Elisha to follow him is a small example compared to the bigger invitation and the more amazing invitation that Jesus gives to us to go and follow him. It points to a better and bigger invitation, and Jesus calls us to follow him. It's like, we've been hanging out minding our own business, and then Jesus comes along, put the robes of righteousness around our shoulders and says, come and follow me. And there's no pressure, there's no control, we get to choose. But Jesus' desire is that we would be all in, that we would say yes to him, that we would look at how he did life, that we would learn from him, that we would ask him questions, that we would receive all that he wants to give us. And so that we can then take that legacy and and build on it and grow it and leave an amazing legacy for the generations around us and that come after us. We're so unbelievably blessed. We are so unbelievably blessed as Christians. We have an amazing legacy. We get to follow Jesus and learn from him. But also we have to think through, based on the free gift that God has given us, what are we going to do to make it count? What can we do? Who can we learn from to build the most amazing legacy we possibly can, so that we can take as much ground as we possibly can, so that we can see Jesus made famous as much as we possibly can? And who can we spot around us to say, come and get alongside me, come and have a coffee, let me show you how to do this thing that God's shown me? Who are the people we can get to come alongside us, so that we can pass the baton on to as many people as possible, so that when we're gone, people don't have to start from scratch, they don't have to learn all the lessons again. Yeah, sure, they'll have to fight their own battles, to then be able to pass on to the generations that come after them. But who can we get around us to give away for free what we pay a price for, so that they can take it further than we can ever possibly dream or imagine? Wouldn't that be amazing if the generations that came after us were given a springboard into all that they're called to, that they would be able to stand on our shoulders and use our breakthroughs to then go and see even more breakthrough in God for their generation and the generations that come after them? So exciting. So let me ask you, what legacy do you want to leave? Who are you learning from? And who are you getting alongside you? Who are you inviting to do life with you, so that we leave the best legacy possible for the people around us?